Hello, and welcome to another episode of Into the Woods with Trapping Girl. I'm your host, Linda White, and I am sitting here with Katie Breunig. And you may have followed her on social media. I know I do. And it is Katie B Outdoors, right, Katie? That's how they would find you.
Yep, it's Katie B and then the underscore with outdoors.
Okay, so guys, if you're looking into, who I'm talking to, if you don't follow her already, that's how you would find her. So we're gonna jump in. I actually met Katie that way through social media. I guess it was you were hashtagging the business, correct? Is that how we connected? How
Yeah,
did
I
we?
think so. Last year, when I started posting more on social media, during trapping season and stuff, I'm like just looking for, different hashtags. And I was like, oh, trapping girl. I'm a trapping girl. So I just kept hashtagging trapping girl and stuff like that. So didn't really know it was a business at the time, but then I found out you guys have the trapping girl in the Sawmill Creek. And yeah, so that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, so we started following her, kind of wondering who this girl was that was tagging us and everything. And I got to tell you, I was really intrigued because um Katie, you're only what, 25, correct?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, yep. So she's only 25 and has this array of outdoor posts from fishing, trapping, hunting. She's into archery, all of that. And she kind of got me intrigued. And I thought maybe I would share her story with the rest of you as well. So, Katie, why don't you just jump on in and kind of tell us, how did you get involved in the outdoors and doing is all the different things that you are doing?
Yeah. So I didn't start, super, super young like a lot of people. My family always gun hunted and, that was pretty much it. So I would go out with my dad when I was younger, once or twice a season and just go sit with him. Well, we never saw any deer. I never saw him shoot a deer. But then by the time I was old enough to hunt, you had to be 12 at that time. I took my hunter safety and went hunting with my uncle. So my uncle was like, well, send her up here and, we'll get her first deer. So we're hunting. I saw a deer. I'm like, okay, you see a deer and you shoot it. That's just what you do because you never see deer. So um, I ended up getting my first deer with my uncle. And then, when I was 13, I went back again and I got another deer. And um, so it all started with gun hunting, and then that kind of branched out to like, okay, like now people are bow hunting. What's this about? I want to try this. And now that's like my true passion is bow hunting. But then that kind of led into, well, now why don't we have any fawns this year? Like, why is the deer population going down? What can we do about this? And we're like, well, there's so many coyotes on the property. We have to do something about these coyotes. So that is how I branched out into trapping. And actually, so my uncle, he started trapping first and he did it himself one year. And then I was in college at that time. So like I would go along with him here or there for a couple of years and then started getting really into it in the past few years and going along and helping him with his trap line pretty much, I'd say like 3 to 4 days a week before. And then this year, actually, I moved away. So we don't share a trap line anymore. And now I'm obviously every single day. And yeah, so now it's just become more than managing our deer population in that one area. It's become like, I love doing this. It's so challenging and so much fun to go after these animals, and it can be so frustrating, but it's just, these coyotes and whatever you're trapping, all these predators and animals need to be managed everywhere. So it's kind of like, it's a sport, it's a hobby, and I consider it a lifestyle. So
So now,
that's how I got into all those things.
when you started, did you see right away the fruits of your labor? Like, Did you the first year that you started trapping these coyotes and everything to help your deer population, how long do you think it took you to, like, really see the growth, see the turkey population come back and see the fawns and everything? Was it right away?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we were seeing fawns and it was actually crazy how fast the population could bounce back once we started managing the predators. And like now we're always like, we need to shoot some more does. Like we have so many deer. It's funny. We're kind of like in the opposite. Like now that we have the coyotes managed, let's start managing the deer too. So
Right,
but
right.
it's good. It's good to see a lot of deer and turkey and, you know,
So you feel like
all that
there's
kind of
more of a
stuff too.
balance definitely then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now you don't just you're not just land trapping. I mean, you've branched into water trapping as well.
Yeah, so that actually I started water trapping for the first time last year. And the only reason we did that is because one of our woods was flooded and it kept getting more and more flooded each year and we're like what is going on? Like why is the water table so high here? And um down on our neighbor's property, it was actually because there was all these beavers that moved in and built this dam. So we're like, okay, well, here's the root of our problem. Can we catch these beavers? And they were like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So we caught all of them out of that lodged and we took down the dam and brought the water. Not really utilize one of our woods. I mean, it was complete marsh pretty much before, like all the trees in it and stuff would have died. It was so flooded. Um, but yeah, so it started with that. And then I had someone else reach out to me and say, like, hey, we have all these beavers behind our house eating these trees we just planted. So we're like, okay, we'll come take care of those for you too. And ended up catching 13 beaver last year in those two spots, which I don't know. I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good to me. I know there's people out there that catch like hundreds of beaver a year, but it was definitely a good start. And then we had another neighbor ask us about muskrats. They have a pond that's full of muskrats, and they're like, hey, you want to catch these muskrats for us too? And so we just kind of kept branching out into different things and trying different methods and stuff. So that's how we got into water trapping a lot this year.
I know like where we are, Michael water traps a lot. He does a lot of beaver trapping and we'll have some places where, you'll catch 10, 15, beaver out of one small area and you're thinking like there's no way that there was that many beaver and then you'll move to the next pond and you'll only catch two and you're thinking like this isn't this isn't adding up right. But yeah, it definitely it definitely 13 beaver sounds like a good start to things, especially whenever you're first starting out. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And I never went back to the one lodge this year to see if more had moved in, but the one behind like in the property next to ours, we did check that this year and it's empty. So we either got them all or they moved on. So
Well, that's good. That's definitely good.
yeah.
So so now that kind of talks about how you started with the outdoors and then you kind of moved into trapping and but I got to ask, so how did you decide, you know what, I'm going to start sharing this over social media and I'm going to start inspiring other women to do the same? We always have all these PETA groups and everything out there and there's so many people who are scared to show on social media. What made you say, "Hey, this is something I want to do?"
Well, I guess it was just like seeing other people, like, okay, so you have the people that are on TV and you're like, okay, well, I'm never going to be that far into this, and I'm never going to get to that level. But then I started seeing people that were just like showing what they do every day and they're in the outdoors and they're trapping and they're hunting and they're doing all this cool stuff and I'm like, man, I want to show people what I do. So then I just like it was, I don't know, a little over a year ago, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to start posting on here and trying to get more, the more people that do that, the more women are out there showing that, hey, I'm in the outdoors and I'm trapping and I'm hunting and I'm doing all this stuff. The more people that are doing that, the more it's just going to be normal for women to be doing this stuff. So I think just adding to that pool of people that are sharing what they're doing in the outdoors really helps encourage other women to get out and do things like that too. So that's primarily why, like, I wanted to start sharing what I was doing, because I want other people to do it too. And I want I want to see what other people are doing also. So
Now, do you think in the last year you've even just, it's just a short amount of time, but do you think that you've seen a growth of women, especially in trapping? I mean,
yeah,
you know, I
for
feel like
sure.
hunting has,
With all,
sorry, I feel like hunting had it like for the last couple years, like with Tiffany Lakoski, she kind of started, the more of the women in hunting, I feel like, but trapping kind of, I guess I want to say was a little a little more behind. But I mean, I've noticed that I definitely think that there's more women. So I was just curious in, the last year what you think.
well, it's crazy because, like, since I started going to conventions with, Trapping Girl in Sawmill Creek, and since I started, um, I helped teach one of the first all women's trapping classes, and just going to all these things and being more involved in the trapping community. Um, it's like eye opening how many women are actually out there doing this that you have no idea. And I don't know if I've only been in that community, as close as I am right now, for a year. So I'm just like in awe actually about how many undiscovered people are out there, like people that aren't necessarily sharing what they're doing on social media, but just like, hey, like, you're a girl and you're out there trapping too. What? You've been doing this for 15 years? That's awesome. Like, you just have no idea how many people are actually doing it. So it'll be interesting this year to see if there's more people, than last year. So I think I'll get a good gauge for that this upcoming season. So
Yeah, that actually brings up a good point. You were involved in that women's trapping class. What did it Sky gave that, correct? Or was it the whole Wisconsin association? I really
it
wasn't
was,
sure how that went.
yeah, so it was through the Wisconsin Trappers Association, so like it was certified to get, so every girl who attended that class got their trapping license after that, or their trapping what do you call it, like trapping safety certificate or whatever.
Right.
um Sky was one of the instructors. There was a couple, I think there was like 4 or 5 of us instructors. And yeah, so we just had a weekend, and hopefully we can do that again this year. I don't know all that went into it behind the scenes. I was just kind of asked to come and help, but yeah, Sky was one of the instructors, and we're kind of all on board to hopefully do another one this year if everything works out. We'll do, we wanted to create a place where women could sign up for this class and not feel like they were being judged by, all the men in the class, or, whatever. So we did that women's trapping class, and yeah, I think it was a huge success. Everybody that was there was super happy, and it was cool to see how many people were actually interested in trapping. All these people are like, yeah, I heard about this class and I want to get my license and I want to go out and try this. And there was a whole variety of people. Like, some people were gun ho ready to go catch a coyote, and some people were like, there's some raccoons by my house and I want to know how to take care of them. And some people were like, I don't know what this is about at all. I'm just here to see what you guys are doing. And
Right.
um a lot of people were just interested in like the fur handling. So it was really cool to get a big group of girls together to see like just everybody's perspective on trapping, and then everybody learned so much and walked away with, so much more knowledge about not only how to trap, like if they wanted to catch something, but just to have an understanding of what it's all about was really cool too.
Yeah, if you don't mind, can you kind of tell us like what were the different classes? What would they expect if you guys are able to hold it again next year? What would they expect?
Like, what did we all learn during it, or what do you mean?
Yeah, what cuz you had little classes within it. Correct? I mean, I saw only pictures, so I'm not really sure all what you did, but there was fur handling, you had made hats, I believe. What all would they expect if they signed up for the class if you were able to have it this coming year, what are some of the things that they would learn?
Right. So I'm not sure like how it's going to go going forward since that was the first one, and obviously there's a lot of learning curves with starting something new, but um so basically everybody signed up for this class. We showed up on a Friday night, and we kind of went through like book stuff that first night, like rules and just basics, like different types of traps, different types of fur bears, like all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And then we stayed right where we had the class. So we had like cabins and stuff to stay in. And the next morning, we got breakfast and kind of dove more into some book stuff and some more just basics, like that was kind of the okay, this is a little bit boring, but this is important. So everybody listen and we'll get through it fast, and then we'll go outside and we'll actually set traps. So
Okay.
then it was kind of split up into we're going to learn how to set DPs for raccoons, and we're going to learn what to use. So we'd do like a demo on that. And then we'd go into like, okay, these are cable restraints, and this is what is legal about a cable restraint and how to set it and where to set it. And so then we kind of went through everything, we went through footholds, and we went through um all the different ways to trap and into water trapping and stuff like that. And then we actually were able to take everybody out and set some traps. So we had permission to, leave these traps overnight. And we set some DPs, and we set a few footholds. And I don't think any water traps were set, but we, talked about where to set them and that kind of stuff. And then um kind of wrap things up for the day. And then the last day we went out and we checked everything. And actually that second night too, that's when we got into the fur handling. Then once it was dark out, our traps were all set. We got into um how to handle your fur once you catch something, and then we got into how to make things out of the fur, which I think actually a lot of people enjoyed, and I really enjoyed that part too, because I was like, I honestly don't know how to make a hat. So like I was like, I'm watching Sky make a hat, and I'm like, okay, cool. Now I know how to make a hat.
Right.
Um, but then that last day we checked our traps and didn't have anything, unfortunately, but wrap things up. And it was like you know, 2 nights and 3 days. So it was a long weekend and stuff, but we learned everything that weekend, and we got so much hands-on experience. And I think it was great. And, we're going to modify a few things for next year, but definitely I hope it happens again this year.
Well, it sounds like you really went from, the very, very basics all the way up to, what can I do with this animal now that I've caught it? And that's great for people
Exactly.
to be able to utilize, what they're catching, and that's fantastic. Absolutely. So,
Exactly. And I'm not sure how it is in like other states, but in Wisconsin, like you can get your trapping license from just taking like the online course. And that teaches you a lot of regulations, and it teaches you, like the basics. It teaches you the book work pretty much. So I always say if you're new to trapping, you need to take an in-person class. It can be a long weekend, you have to dedicate the whole weekend to it, but it helps so much with actually knowing what to do once you're out there. Because if you just do the online course and you know the regulations, you're like, okay, great. Well, now how do I catch something? And the hands on experience is so helpful for that.
right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And I think of like safety wise too, like it's great. You can read about things, you can um really go through a book and say, okay, these are the safety regulations that I need to know. But I mean, until you put your hands on a 330 or something like that, you're in for a rude awakening if you don't put your hands just in the right spot. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on
Right?
that one. So
I was gonna say you don't want to be handling a 330 if you don't know what you're doing.
no, not at all, not at all. Yeah. And I have a question. So, you were saying about last year was your first year beaver trapping and everything. How did that go with handling a 330 and everything? I mean, that's quite a difference than, just your land trap. So, did you have any kind of mentor or
Right.
anything like that prior?
So I did. So my uncle had trapped beaver the year before with a friend. So like they had one spot and they were trapping and they like did a little bit and they caught a few. So he had like some knowledge of it, but it was a lot of like looking on those Facebook groups and like seeing what other people were doing and looking stuff up. And I remember him saying to me, he's like, when he was showing me how to even set like a body grip trap, and he was like, okay, now this one is going to hurt if you get your hand stuck in it, but this one's going to break your arm. So don't get your hand stuck in this one. He's like, he's like, don't be afraid of it, but you need to respect it. And I'm like, okay, that's stuck in my head. He's like, don't fear it, respect it,
Yeah, yeah,
and
definitely.
keep your hands out of the way.
Right. Right. Yeah, some of those traps, I mean, they're meant to instantly kill, the beaver or whatnot, and if you handle them improperly, they can hurt, definitely, absolutely. So I guess my other question is now that I think this last year you weren't trapping at all with your uncle. How did that go? Like kind of being on your own and not having someone kind of there with you.
Yeah. So, well, this year has been a struggle for anybody who follows me on social media knows that I am not posting as much as I usually am. But it's been a huge learning curve, honestly, like and it's been a good thing. And there's so many aspects that I like about running my own trap line and there's so much I miss about sharing a trap line with somebody. So, like for example, moving up here, it was so hard to find, which I didn't think it would be, but it was so hard to find permission to trap anywhere. And I was totally understandable of people being like, well, I'm deer hunting. So, you can't trap until I'm done deer hunting, which I'm like, you know what? I'm deer hunting too. So that's fine. Um, but then it was like, okay, you can trap this property, but only over here. And it was like, okay, well, this isn't really a good spot to trap,
Right.
but I'll take what I can get and I'll go with it. And then like, um, I have traps set behind my house and stuff too. And it, it's a small area and I just haven't been seeing a lot of sign, honestly, where I've been setting traps. So usually, you're going to set traps where you see sign. And this year it was kind of, well, set traps wherever I can get permission to set traps kind of thing. um, but I caught a few and I've actually had a lot of firsts this year too, which is great. So I got, I drew my first Fisher tag and, this girl, Renee, she let me trap on her family's land down. It's like an hour south of me. So I was driving an hour there and back every night to check these traps. And I ended up catching a coyote off of her land and I caught a couple muskrat, a mink, and then I ended up with a fisher too. So, I mean, that was super awesome for me. We don't draw fisher tags in Wisconsin every year. So to draw my first one and to catch a nice big male was awesome. And
Yeah.
then a mink too. I was muskrat trapping down one of the creeks just kind of in the area and I ended up it was kind of accidentally catching my first mink, but I was still super excited. I was like, whoa, I got a mink,
Right.
something
Yeah.
new.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you were saying about, was it just the deer, like the deer hunters and whatnot? It was the only reason, or were you running into, other people were already trapping? What were some of kind of the issues that you ran into with asking for permission? Was some of it, against trapping? What do you think was really all the
No,
holdbacks?
I guess so not necessarily. It was just the places that I could trap, they were all for trapping and stuff, but I think nobody was trappers. So it not everybody understands that you don't set a trap and like catch six things in it the next day. Like there's more work that goes into it. Like sometimes traps need to set for a month before you catch anything in it. Like it takes time. And then with the weather up here too, you want to get everything in the ground as soon as you can, because when it freezes, that's fine when you only have an inch or two of frost. But now I can't even pound my cable restraint, or I can't even pound my earth anchor past the frost line. So that it
Mhm.
just, you're breaking more of them than you're actually getting to stick in the ground. So it just becomes harder and harder later in the year. So I
Right.
think there was a lot of not understanding that this is kind of like a time I'm on a time frame here, like I got to get going on this. I want to get as much out as I can right away. And then all I have to do is check them, where it kind of ended up being like, okay, I can set a few now and I can set a few later. And then all of a sudden everything's frozen. It's 10 times harder.
Right.
Um, I had one person that I was given their contact information and stuff, and they already had someone trapping there. So I did run into that once too, but for the most part, it was just, I think, people being, I don't know, like, I guess naive about what it takes to actually trap.
Mhm. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, a lot of the land that we trap here, Michael has secured for years and years and years, and every now and then we will kind of venture out and get some new land and talk to new people. But a lot of the time where we're at, it's farmers. We talk to these farmers, and um they're not too worried about deer hunting as much as they are like they've already had somebody on their land, or we it was funny, we even ran into this one farm where they told us they already had a trapper, and we literally went to the farm across the street and asked him, and he was like, "Yeah, no problem." So we're like, "All right, well fine. We'll trap them over there." It's the same coyotes.
we're I was gonna say we're trapping the same coyotes anyway, but we'll just set our traps on this side of the road.
Right. That is exactly what
That's funny.
happened. It was funny. It was funny. So when you're up in Wisconsin, like I've been to Wisconsin before. My aunt and uncle used to have a camp up there. So, tell us about the terrain. Are you trapping mainly woods? Are you trapping farms? A little bit of a mixture. What are you doing?
I think it's a huge mixture here depending on where you are. Um, what I was trapping when I was down with my uncle was a lot of woods and like like it was a lot of woods, but it was like trails and stuff through woods. So, and we had some field edges or some like brush, like open brushy areas, stuff like
Mhm.
that. Um, Up here, it's pretty much the same. I mean, I have a lot on woods and field edges and things like that. But then I also have lakes up here. So there's tons of lakes around. And I actually caught my last coyote running across a bog that goes
Oh,
out, like is right by a river that goes um out of a lake. So we live on a lake up here, and once the bog froze up, I was able to drive the snowmobile out there. So then now I have traps set around the lake too, which I honestly thought was going to be more successful than it has been, but a learning curve.
right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's kind of neat though. I mean, like that you caught it on a bog and everything. That's I think of, a water source, a food source and everything, that would be a great place, but, like I said, mainly where we're trapping is more fields and everything. So we don't, other than the stream that's by our house, we don't really trap around any kind of water. There's mainly, fields. So yeah, that's kind of neat to hear, where everybody else is trapping and what they've had success with and what they haven't had success with. Um
Right.
so with following you on social media, this is a question I've always wanted to ask you, and it's funny because we've seen each other so many times throughout the year and everything, and I never ask. So you go up to Alaska, and actually you're gonna join me here in March in Alaska, but you go up to Alaska and you fish up there. Have you ever thought about trapping up there?
Yeah, actually. So I was just writing like a little write up for DSG actually about like dream hunts, and that is what came to mind. I was like, I want to hunt in Alaska. I want to trap in Alaska. Like I'm just so intrigued with Alaska right now, and after going, so this last year was actually my first time there. Um but yeah, when we were driving in Alaska, funny that you bring this up, is we went down this road and it said, there was a sign, they said like caution, like traps ahead, and we're like, oh, that's so cool, like someone's trapping here. Obviously not right now because it's not trapping season right now, but um and we were driving and we're like, well, there's a trap right there. So we got out and we like looked at it and we're like, what kind of trap are they using? It was set off, it was just sitting there. I don't know if they forgot it or if they just leave them until next year, I'm not sure, but and we're like, yeah, what kind of trap do they use? Oh, that's cool. Like this is, someone's trapping out here. I mean, obviously, everybody, that there's tons of people that trap in Alaska, but it would be so cool to just even go along with somebody's trap line out there.
Right.
I
Oh
think that would
yeah.
be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So um this last year, that was the first time you were up in Alaska and you were fishing, correct?
Yes, we did go fishing.
So what explain that to me, because so I had interviewed Noah, and you actually sat in on the interview, and I'm totally intrigued with Alaska now too. Like I can't wait till March when we get up there. But so to me it's like a whole nother world, like, and I'm still in like La La Land, like thinking of what it's gonna be like in March. But um you haven't hunted or trapped in Alaska, but talk to people a little bit about what it's like fishing up there. Is it open areas? Can you easily go find a place if they wanted to go fishing or wanted to go hunting? What has been your experience?
Um, so I was fortunate enough because Chad had been there before and he had places, that he had gone. And then we were going to try some new places too. So we had kayaks and stuff there. And we were driving along this road up to this lake that we were like, okay, we're going to go to this lake and we're going to try to catch some trout in this lake. So, brought the kayaks with or whatever. And it was just absolutely beautiful. Like you're in this lake. There was a few houses, but pretty remote, and you're just surrounded by mountains. It was so gorgeous, and the water was crystal clear. You could actually see the trout like in the water underneath you sometimes, which was just amazing. But then like driving back, we're like, there's we just passed like 4 or 5 other little ponds on the way here. Let's just check those out too. And, we ended up catching trout out of there. And then, checked out a few rivers. We were trying to catch some grayling, but we didn't end up catching any of those, but we still caught, more trout. And yeah, I mean, if you go to Alaska and you want to go fishing, bring a fishing pole and stop anywhere. Like there's so many places where the rivers cross and you can just go, down on the rocks or whatever and cast. And yeah, we pulled out a bunch of trout. So it was awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I'm excited whenever we go up there just to be able to see what it's like. And you've never been up there in the like winter months, right? So this will be a first for you too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, I a couple more questions because we're coming to an hour, and I normally try to keep these to to roughly about an hour. So, I'm assuming that you're probably in a lot of different social media groups, with hunting, fishing, trapping, and so on. And because you do all of it, have you ever really run into any issues with maybe a hunter that doesn't understand the trapping, or a trapper that doesn't understand, the angler part of something, or the angler who doesn't understand, have you run into much of a problem where, those outdoorsmen don't seem to, they kind of stay in their lane?
Yeah. Um, all the time actually. And it's not ever, the anglers that don't understand the hunting or, the hunters that don't understand the fishing. It's always, always, always from what I've seen so far anyway, it's hunters or anglers, I suppose, that are against trapping, which blows my mind, honestly. Um, to think that people don't see, with PETA and all that, like that's a huge issue for the outdoor industries. It's a huge issue for hunting, fishing, and trapping, because right now they're targeting trapping so hard that they're getting it shut down in some states.
Hmm.
So if people want their rights to continue hunting, you know PETA's working on trapping first. Once they get rid of trapping, they're just going to go on to the next thing. They're not going to stop. And the next thing is hunting. So if hunters and fishers and trappers and, this whole outdoor community of people don't stand together on all of it, you know, it's going to crumble. So that's why it really blows my mind when people are hunters, but then they say it's cruel to trap when, it's population management. And it's just a different form of it. There's so many people have this idea of old trapping in their head, and it's so different now. Traps are humane. We put swivels on our traps. We do all these things to make sure these animals aren't, hurting themselves while they're in a trap. Like, traps don't have teeth. People don't realize that.
Right.
So it's it's really frustrating, honestly, to have people, hunters, come at you about trapping when, it's just as important to manage the population of coyotes and to manage the population. If beavers are doing damage in some area, like, there doesn't need to be that many beavers there all the time. They're plugging up culverts and flooding roads and stuff like that. Like, there's a place for everything, and then there's a place for everything to be managed as well. So, um, yeah, I my stance on it is everybody needs to stand together, whether you're hunting or fishing or trapping.
Right. Oh yeah. I fully agree. And it's kind of funny because you started as a hunter, and the main reason you got into trapping was to help with that, population management of predators and everything. So I can definitely see from your stance why it would be hard to talk to another hunter who isn't on board, and you're thinking, "Man, you're missing out," like.
Right, exactly. And I think it's important too to, like, you get comments on your social media all the time about, some people say like nasty things, and some people say like, just like, why are you doing this? And you can kind of tell who is open to listening to what you're saying and whose comment needs to be deleted, and then you just block them. Like, there are people that are like, isn't that cruel to do that? And you're like, no, it's not. And this is why. And there are actually people that will listen, So I think it's important to not, like, if somebody says something about you trapping or it being inhumane or, so anything like that, if somebody says something to you about that, I think it's important to not attack them back. Like, don't yell at them, don't call them dumb, don't, like, just try to educate them, try to just tell them, well, this is what I'm doing and here's why.
Right.
So I think it's super important too to not get so defensive about it when people are attacking you for trapping. It's most the people who are saying like you shouldn't hunt are most likely not going to listen to your response. But a lot of times the people that tell you you shouldn't be trapping, that are hunters or, enjoy the outdoors in different ways, they're more open to listening. So I just think it's important to not yell, not get angry, and just explain why we do what we do.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. And so that kind of brings me to this question that I was asked, so now I'm asking everybody else. Do you see that there would ever be a common ground, and if so, what is the way to get to that common ground between, our PETA friends who are totally against, pretty much anything in the outdoors. I mean, I guess you could garden and they're okay with that, but I'm sure that's hurting, I don't know, the bugs or something. So, is there a way to get to the common ground, with our PETA friends in the outdoors where maybe we could see eye to eye? I mean, do you think that there's a way to get there? And if so, what would that way look like? What could we be doing to maybe help get there?
I don't think there's ever going to be, peace between hunters and trappers and PETA. I think we can definitely keep our rights and we can educate more of them on, like I said before, like why we're doing what we're doing. And some people might be more apt to understanding that. There's always going to be people that disagree with you. So I really don't think that we'll ever see eye to eye on everything. But I think just being at peace with, if we can explain to them what we're doing, if they're willing to listen, because there are people out there that are willing to listen. I think that would help a lot with maybe them not attacking our outdoor community quite as harshly. But then I think a huge thing that's really easy for us to do is think about what you're putting on social media. Like, nobody wants to see this coyote like full of blood. Like it doesn't bother some people, but it does bother other people. And I think if you can just be more respectful of like, I'm going to wipe the blood off of this coyote's chin before I take a picture, that just portrays trapping in a better light. If we're, taking or just being mindful of what pictures we're taking and how they look. And, it's not always a perfect, pretty picture when you're trapping or hunting or, any of that stuff. But if we can just not shine ourselves in a bad light while we're posting pictures of what we're doing, I think that would help a lot too.
Right, because I mean, they obviously didn't see the before or the after or what happened and, so on. So, sometimes whenever they get that one snapshot, it leads their mind in a totally different direction than anything that had happened. So, yeah,
Right.
I fully agree with you. So
And then, yeah, they're going to take that picture and it's just fuel to their fire. So, and then they're going to change it and say like, oh, this is what happened and not what actually happened. So I just think if you can be mindful of what you're posting and, it's not always perfect, but do the best you can to portray trapping and hunting and all that stuff in a good light. I think that is our best bet for the easiest thing that you can do.
yeah, I fully agree. So we're gonna wrap this up, but what are some of the things that you have going on? I mean, you've got a hunt that's coming up, correct? You're going to Alaska. What are some of the other outdoor things you have throughout the next year?
So, I actually have a lot coming up in the next 2 months. I have been so busy with trapping season for the past few months that I've kind of been, staying home and getting all that stuff done. But next week, actually a week from today, I'm leaving for Arkansas to go snow goose hunting with Wings of the Prairie outfitters down there. So looking forward to that. And then we're going to Tuscarora Lodge, which is up kind of on the border of Minnesota and Canada. And we're going lake trout fishing up there in March, and then Alaska in March too. So I kind of have a jam-packed next couple months coming up here. But then I don't know. I don't have too many plans beyond that because I feel like I have so much going on right now. I haven't looked too far ahead, but yeah, hopefully some more hunts and stuff coming up this fall.
That's great. That's great. So, if anybody wants to follow you, they can follow you on Facebook and Instagram, correct? And is your
Yep.
handle the same on both?
Yep. It's KDB_outdoors.
Great. Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you and have a great day. I want to thank you all for tuning in again. And I hope you enjoyed our interview with Katie. I also hope that you go and follow her on social media if you're not already. I truly feel that she is an inspiration to anyone who is looking to get into any kind of outdoors activities, or even if you're already in one. Her posts are wonderful that really show how all of us coincide, whether you're hunting, fishing, trapping, we all need to work together. And I think that that's a message that's extremely important. And like I said, I hope that you follow her, you enjoy some of her posts. I know I do. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Sawmill Creek Baits and Lures, Trapping Girl, Trevor Barnes from Barnes Hide and Fur, and Adrian Romero from Romero Fine Arts. We really work hard to try to get you a whole different array of interviewees, and I hope that you're enjoying this podcast, and thank you all so much for the support.